Guess who's back? Back again. Okay, I'm not Slim Shady, but I am Matty Ice, and I am back. And it is great to be back. And there was a lot of stuff that took place in my absence. And one of those things is the Stanley Cup playoffs, which in a blink of an eye we thought was going to be over, ended up going 7 games, which was very impressive. The Tennessee Vols break the curse and win the College World Series. And if you missed it, like many others did, the NBA had their draft take place today. We're going to break that all down. I'm your host, Matthew Reardon, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I have been to Mount Rushmore. I have even seen the Eiffel Tower on TV. I have seen the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Monument, and all those have in common are monuments, but none of those are bigger than this monument, this monumental moment we are celebrating today, which is a very special episode to us, which is indeed episode 100 for Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I remember it like it was yesterday when me and David started this show, originally Coast to Coast Sports, and then becoming Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights, where we brought on our great friend Ed Smith. And it's been a fun ride. I speak for the three of us here that it has been a great time. We enjoy what we do, and we hope that you guys enjoy what we do. But there's nothing like your 100th episode to celebrate, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for sports, because that's our passion. That is what we love, and we have always loved it, and we continue to love it, even if our teams may let us down. Sorry, David. Sorry, Ed. Sorry to my Ducks. Our teams do let us down, but that's sports. We move on. We rub dirt on it, and we continue at it, because that is what a fan is, a fanatical. We love sports. But today we do celebrate our 100th episode. I do want to celebrate that with a special toast to my other co-hosts here, and as well to the audience, because 100 is very monumental. So, David, Ed, you guys have been great co-hosts, and I enjoy having you guys on each and every episode. And I want to, share a toast with you guys for another 100 episodes and so forth. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you two. So thank you guys, and cheers to 100.
Cheers.
Clinky, clinky.
And yes, those are cold sodas. If YouTube asks, they are cold sodas or warm sodas. In Ed's case, we've been waiting a little bit, but
Really?
if you guys didn't catch on, I do want to introduce both of my co-hosts here today. First, I've got David Street,
What's up, y'all?
and secondly, we got Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
Before I jump into these topics that we have, because we do have a good amount of topics, is there anything you two would like to say in regards to episode 100 before I take the floor?
I want to say a couple things. First things first, congratulations to you, Matthew, on being a father for the first time ever. I can only imagine what that feels like.
Better than this 100th episode, but I don't want to downplay
course.
that.
Of course, man. And, I've been thinking about what my favorite moments have been since we started this podcast. And I can't name every one of them, but some of my favorite moments include telling how we became fans of our respective college teams. The rankings that we've done. Those have been some of my favorites. But yeah, I have absolutely enjoyed every second of doing this with you guys. And Matthew, I will always be appreciative of you just randomly DMing me on Twitter, although I don't know if it was random, because I think we both had a pretty good idea that we wanted to do something like this, but just DMing me on Twitter, and then it all led to this.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say congratulations to you two for starting all this and letting me jump on the track as this train goes forward. The greatest journey starts with a single step, and I continue to walk with y'all until there is no further journey to be had. And this is one of the steps on the way to a much longer, uh, much longer continuation of this. And I look forward to uh, speaking with you guys. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversations on and off camera, and I also enjoy the conversations I have with the people that have watched us through these 100 episodes, and hopefully continue to do so moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think you know what else I think we enjoy when people like this video and subscribe to this channel. We are very thankful for the subscribers that we do have, but we're always grateful for even more subscribers.
Cheers to that.
Absolutely. Always having a new subscriber. So appreciate that. But on to sports news because it never ends. It is always continuing, just like that train Ed was just talking about. And the Stanley Cup Finals, we've talked about it very thoroughly on this show. And I remember when it was just 3-0 in the Florida Panthers' favor. We thought this was over. Edmonton did not stand a chance. Well, Edmonton decided they wanted to do their best to rewrite history. They did a pretty damn good job, I will say that, especially against this Florida Panthers team, which is as complete as they come. They are a very solid team, but Edmonton and more specifically Connor McDavid had some other ideas, other plans to derail that Florida Panthers hype train. They were that close, guys. That close to doing it. But in the end, the Florida Panthers on their home ice, they let the Rats reign and they took Game 7 and won the Stanley Cup Finals with a 2-1 score for their first time in their 30-year franchise history. And guys, rightfully deserved, in my opinion. This Florida Panthers team hard fought victory, but they, like I said, they are a very complete team, centered, you could say, by their captain Alexander Barkov or even Sergei Bobrovsky in the net, because those two names seem to kind of be in Sinopolis to why their team got to that success. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts. David, I know it's a Florida team that was not your Florida team that won, but what are your thoughts on the Panthers' victory?
Well, it's a well-deserved victory. I mean, as a Lightning fan, I hate that we're now not the only team in the Sunshine State with the Stanley Cup. We still got more cups, by the way. Okay, we still have that for now. Okay, but from a neutral perspective, it's great to see the state of Florida dominating hockey. The Panthers were one of the best teams, really, from start to finish, and just absolutely brilliant from guys like. Barkov, guys like Sergei Bobrovsky. There's one name that I can't think of right now. I'm sure if I remember who he is, I'll bring him up later. But this was a total team effort from finish, and they won it the hard way. When they went up 3-0, we all thought that they were just going to sweep the Oilers. I mean, I predicted that the Panthers were going to absolutely dominate the Oilers, and it looked like that was going to be the case. And then Connor McDavid and the Oilers just kind of woke up. So kudos to them for, I think, being the second or third ever team to tie a Stanley Cup series at 3 after being down 3-0. So they certainly put up a valiant effort. And also, shout out to Paul Maurice as well. If I remember correctly, I think prior to Game 7, he held the record for, I think, the longest amount of playoff games coached without a cup. So he was definitely overdue for one. So good for him.
Yeah, and David, just wait until they add another hockey team in Jacksonville, like the NFL did. Just keep adding, keep
Yeah.
adding. You know, one thing I would say about the Panthers is they did seem to kind of get in their own way during games 4, 5, and 6, because they had, with them losing the year before and getting back to the finals, they're thinking, oh, what's it going to be like when we win? What's it going to be like when we win? And then they lose, and then they lose again, and then they lose again. So then it's for all the marbles, and then all of a sudden, the same Panthers team that we saw in 1, 2, and 3 show up for Game 7. It was weird to see that take place, but that's absolutely what took place according to their captain, Alexander Barkov. So it's when he was interviewed after the game, that's exactly what he said. They got to thinking about what it's going to be like when we win this, not let's put them away. And that allowed that crease, pardon the pun, to let Connor McDavid to impose his will upon this series, just like he did against Dallas, just like he did in the first round. It's something that was very impressive for the Panthers to finally just say, wait a second, we are done with this. This is us, and we're going to do this tonight.
Yeah. And I've said before that a lot of times when teams are up 3-0, they have a tendency to think, well, we're right there at the finish line. Our team is down 3-0. They don't have a chance. And there's a tendency to just kind of, coast along. And that's exactly what the Panthers said. But hopefully it didn't really bite them in the butt too much.
Yeah, and Ed, you got a pretty interesting fact on Barkov, right?
Yeah, Alexander Barkov is, believe it or not, the first Finland-born player in the 132-year history of the Cup to be the captain and first hoist the trophy. It's considering how many players you get from that region of the world, I find it very interesting that this is the first one from Finland itself to be the first to hoist the trophy. And the fact that his first route in hoisting it and the first handoff he did was to Bobrovsky was just completely fitting to everything that Bobrovsky put forth in that final game.
So wait, Ed, are you saying that Barkov finished the job?
Oh, you need to put that cup down.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah, it was only fitting that the first handoff was to Sergei Bobrovsky, and that's who I want to talk a little bit more about. This was a guy who was so dominant in games 1, 2, and 3 that was the reason why we thought this game was going to be put away, was because of him. In games 1, 2, and 3, I lost count how many breakaway goal attempts that the Oilers had that he completely stopped. He was a brick wall. You weren't getting anything past him. And then 4, 5, and 6, it was the complete opposite. It was something changed. They were able to find his soft spot, which there is. There's always telltale signs, and they were able to exploit that. Well, Game 7, you saw him in his games 1, 2, and 3 form. It was hard to get any goals past him. Connor McDavid sure as hell tried right at the very end, and he couldn't do it. And it was, like I said, fitting that Bobrovsky got that first handoff. Without him, Panthers would not be here, which brings me to my next question, my next point. Do you guys have the goalie position up there in most importance when it comes to positions in North American sports?
David?
100%. The only position I would probably have over goalie is quarterback. That's it. And, in all my years of watching hockey, I mean, pretty much almost every team that won the Stanley Cup did so in large part because they had a fantastic goalie. The only two teams that I can think of, and I'm sure there's more, but the only two teams that I can think of that did win the Stanley Cup in spite of having average goaltending at best, are the 2010 Blackhawks and the 2022 Colorado Avalanche. Yeah, 2022, because both of those rosters were just so freaking beyond loaded that, you could have put me right there at net and they still would have won the cup probably.
Now the puck would have just got caught in your beard. I am definitely going to put goalie position in the 2 to 3 range, I'm with you, David. It's got to be quarterback. Absolutely the most important position in North American sports, hands down. But without the ability to stop the puck from getting into the 6 foot wide net, nobody wins. The only other position that I would even dare to make this comparison with is a catcher in baseball. Because not only does the catcher become part of just about every play, every pitch, he's got defensive alignment, he's got to know all of his pitchers, he's got to be a psychologist, he's got to be the field general, or basically a manager on the field. Whereas the goalie, his job is to do the goalie thing. That's it. So it's, for me, this conversation comes down to the skill that it takes to do it, but also the responsibility of the position itself.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you guys when it comes to the quarterback position. But sports can be a very funny and funky thing because I'm just going to throw out a name out there, and I'm sure you guys will laugh. And that's Nick Foles. All right, because that year for the Eagles, when Carson Wentz went down, you're thinking, all right, backup quarterback named Nick Foles, who looks like Napoleon Dynamite. There's no way he's leading us to the playoffs. There's no way he's leading us.
But to be
Well,
fair, he did have a season a few seasons prior where he had 27 touchdown passes and only 2 interceptions. So it wasn't like it wasn't like that he just got thrown in with no experience.
yeah, but then to beat the GOAT Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, it's like everything lined up. Same with Cardell Jones when they beat my Ducks, okay? Uh, the same thing, but granted, when Ezekiel Elliott's rushing for 200 plus yards a game, you're pretty well off. But I just wanted to play devil's advocate there because say Bobrovsky went down, you really think their backup goaltenders putting up that type of performance? No, they're not. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there that of the importance of both positions, but it could be funny with that anomaly of Nick Foles and Cardale Jones where they do get thrown in there and they win it all. We've seen
And
it happen.
fun fact, I've been on the field that Nick Foles went to high school at because it's just down the road from me.
And he went to was it Westlake High School, Ed?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Westlake High School here in Austin.
Yeah. Austin. So Sergey, dude's the man, and he is a big part of why they're there. Matthew Kachuk, he finally won this Stanley Cup after 2 years coming to the Panthers. And last year, his name seemed like was always being talked about. This year, he still did absolutely amazing for the Panthers. But you saw a complete team effort with this Panthers team. I mean, I Sam Bennett, Verhage, the list goes on and on of how many people contributed to this team. And you're not always hearing the big stars, but Matthew Kachuk, he's as complete as they come to, and he's a stud out on the ice. And this does complete his plan of winning that Stanley Cup with them.
And just real quick, just think about the futile history of the Panthers in the Stanley Cup. Prior to the finals, the Panthers had made 2 finals appearances before in their history, and they were a combined 1-8. They got swept by Colorado their first finals appearance, and they lost to the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1. And I think the only game they won was game 2. And then game 5, they just got absolutely obliterated. It was one of the worst Stanley Cup losses that I've ever seen. So just think about how much that motivated them. Their horrible Stanley Cup record, the fact that they got destroyed their last Stanley Cup Finals game. Just think about how much that motivated them just to finally win their first trophy in franchise history.
Well, this is something that the Panthers traded for Matthew Kachuk to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Was a couple of years ago, they won the President's Trophy all on offense. Score, 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 score. They could score infinitely, but they couldn't stop infinitely. And they made the turn, they made the decision to go defense first. And here they are in just 2 years, right back on top of the mountain, not for the regular season, but for the entire NHL. And that is kudos to their front office being able to self scout themselves to look to see where they can get better and what it's going to take to get to the top of the mountain, which we've all heard the saying, offense wins games, defense wins what?
Championships.
Yep. And it's true. It's true unless you are playing LSU when they have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson. That becomes a different story. Yeah, but
LSU's defense was average. I think a better example would be a 2010 Auburn. Like that
Yeah.
defense was atrocious, but they were a one-man wrecking crew with Cam Newton.
yeah, but that keep in mind Clemson was the number one defense that year, and well, they did not
Good point. Good point. I see. Yeah, I see what you're getting at now.
championship game. But the Panthers are the third team since 1968 to win the Cup after losing the year prior. It happened 2 times before in 09 with my Penguins in Detroit and in 84 with the Oilers and Islanders. So it has happened before. It's rare. It's hard to reach the finals again. I mean, I remember when the St. Louis Blues won it just a couple years ago, and it's like, who? It's like it's hard to come back once again unless you are the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know, David, but it is hard in hockey, and here they are coming back after losing last year and winning. But there was a lot of talk on the Conn Smythe Trophy, and I'm sure we'll be in agreement, or I'd like to hear more from you guys on this. But Connor McDavid won it, 42 points in the entire playoffs. He turned it on. He really did, and it seemed like he put the team on his back, especially when you had others like Draisaitl not play up to his potential. Connor McDavid did, and he did just about everything he could and finished with 42 points. And keep in mind, this isn't just like a finals MVP trophy. This is the Conn Smythe, which is the entire playoffs. And he did everything he could. And he finished just behind Wayne Gretzky in 88, who had 43 points. Mario Lemieux with 44 and 91, and then Gretzky again in 85 with 47 points. So those are some of the very best hockey players to ever do it. And here he is once again putting his name up there. I totally agree with him winning this, even though the fans booed and wish it was Bobrovsky. But I'd like to hear your guys' point on this.
You want to take it first, Ed?
Well, I predicted that this would be the case in either way.
Yeah.
Going into Game 7, because it's difficult to look at the entirety of the playoffs and not think that Connor McDavid didn't impose his will upon the entire playoffs, not just these 3 games in the finals. It has been a continuous effort throughout the entire playoffs, and to say that anybody in these playoffs has played better than him, I think you're trying to make a case, but you're not going to make a case that's better than the one that Connor McDavid made.
Yeah, his 12 points in 2 games. I mean, it set a finals record. I mean, he really turned it on in the finals too, but throughout the whole playoffs. David?
Yeah, I've said before that I would not be surprised if Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe Trophy, and that I wouldn't think it would be egregious. I still don't think it's necessarily egregious, but I still have to say that I disagree with it. Entirely. I think the trophy should go to the individual of the cup winning team. Now, Connor McDavid had a phenomenal postseason. I think, at least in Matthew, our lifetime. No offense, Ed, but Matthew in our in our lifetime.
You're gonna drive me into drinking.
I know. I was just thinking that, but Matthew and I are we're only a few months apart. So in our in our lifetime, where was I going with this? Well, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that yes, Connor McDavid had a phenomenal season. Oh, I know. In our lifetime, this was probably the best individual season in the playoffs that an NHL player has has ever had, right? But when you talk about the entirety of the playoffs, you have to include quite literally the entirety of the playoffs, okay? And Connor McDavid, as fantastic as he was a ghost in Game 7. He was nowhere to be seen in the game where his team needed him the most, in the most important game of his career so far, he was nowhere to be seen. Whereas Bobrovsky actually did show up. Now, personally, I think Barkov should have won the MVP, but if I recall correctly, I think Bobrovsky was number 2 in Conn Smythe voting, so that's why I'm mentioning Bobrovsky. So then, in that case, Bobrovsky should have won it. And I've seen people on Twitter say that, well, Bobrovsky played like garbage games 4, 5, and 6. Yes, that may be true, but you cannot say that and then simultaneously blatantly ignore the fact that, once again, Connor McDavid was a complete no-show in the most important game of the year, whereas Bobrovsky actually did show up in the most important game of the year. I think there is an element of dishonesty when people just ignore that.
Yeah, and it is tough to ignore when they needed him most. He did not show up. He was not there, and that I clearly saw that. Being the sport fanatic I am, it was kind of tough to see because what happened to him. Where then Bobrovsky did show up when it mattered most. But you know what really caught my eye, and it's tough because this happened on the Panthers' home ice, which makes matters worse because, of course, they're going to boo. They just celebrated hoisting the trophy, but one of their guys isn't going to be hoisting the Conn Smythe trophy. So it is tough, but there was a lot of Oiler fans there. Did you guys notice that for Game 7? When
Oh,
they
yeah.
scored, I could not believe how loud it was. And I was like, we in Edmonton or are we in Miami? I mean, I'm confused on where we're even at right now, but uh, travel in packs. I mean, Ed knows that. Packer fans travel. I know that.
Mhm.
Steelers fans travel. When you love your team, sometimes you're willing to spend the money just to go see them.
Well, Edmonton, Alberta people are not no are notoriously not good with money,
Yes.
so they are willing to just do whatever and then make up for it on the other side.
When it comes
Because really, how many times have they seen their Oilers be in the NHL Finals?
For a lot of them, probably twice. This one and then 06 against Carolina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of them weren't around when the dominance of the Oilers in the '80s took place, starting with that loss to the Islanders in '85.
Yeah. Really quick, I
Yeah,
want to
when it comes to Oilers fans, there's no such thing as a budget when it comes to their team.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I want to just really quick go through a little speed round here before we get to the next topic. But Connor McDavid, first non-winner since '03, where Gene Sebastian Geiger won it. Goalie, though. But he was the first non-goalie to win the award without winning it since 1976. Reggie Leach. Not Reggie Jackson, Reggie Leach of the Flyers. Um, but it begs me to the question, which of course a lot of people are going to ask: is McDavid going to be the next great one? No, no pun intended. I'm taking a Wayne Gretzky's name, but the next great player to never win it. I mean, we saw it with, let's say, Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley to never win it. Dan Marino as well. That's probably one of the big ones right there. John Stockton. Karl Malone ended up winning one because he went to the Lakers. I'm pretty sure he won one there, but
Yeah,
but
he
John Stockton. So there are some great players out there to never win it. And is Connor McDavid going to be the next player?
I think I mean, it's possible, certainly. But I've been thinking about players who, didn't really win it until later on in their years. At first, I thought about Sidney Crosby, but then I remembered, oh, wait, Sidney Crosby won his first Stanley Cup when he was 21 or 22. He was in his early 20s, right? But
Mhm.
then I remember the guys who didn't win it later in their years. And for the record, by the way, Connor McDavid is 27 years old. You look at Alex Ovechkin, a guy who right there with Crosby has been viewed as a top 2, top 3 player for so much of his time. Alex Ovechkin did not win his first Stanley Cup until he was 33 years old. Let's look at other sports. I don't think Dirk Nowitzki won his first NBA title with the Mavericks until he was also 33, 32, 33, somewhere around there. Peyton Manning, I don't think won his first Super Bowl until he was 30 years old. Some people are able to win championships pretty much right away, like Crosby did, and also Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves for the Blackhawks. But then also some players don't win it later on, like Alex Ovechkin and like Dirk Nowitzki. And obviously, what we're seeing right now with McDavid is that, yeah, I mean, facts are the facts. He's not going to win a Stanley Cup until later on, because it quite literally is later on in his career right now. But he's only 27 years old. He's still very much in the midst of his prime. It's not close to being over for him yet. And if you think this is going to be his last time in the Stanley Cup Finals, you're sadly mistaken.
Well,
Yeah.
we just talked about the fact that it takes defense to win championships. What is Connor McDavid's calling card? Being one of the most creative and physically gifted offensive players that we've seen in the NHL. So unless you're building an entire team of defense around him, I don't know if we're going to see him make it this far again without the front office taking that long, hard look at themselves the way that the Panthers did and deciding what is going to best complement, but also provide some more security for their back end when you definitely have a great front foot with Connor McDavid.
Well, and the thing with the Oilers that they ran into the most is that they did somewhat have a team built around them that was supposed to do good, but Evander Kane went out. Dreisaitl, who knows where the hell he was? He was not there. I mean, Hyman, who started out the playoffs as hot as anyone, he didn't even do the best either. And McDavid has a very underrated defense, but yes, he is offense as can be, and we know what he can do with the puck and with his skates. But the biggest hurdle is they're going to have to deal with a Canadian curse. I'm just making that term up, but they're a 30-year drought since the last Canadian team won. They're 0-7. So it is becoming very tough for a Canadian team to win it. So he may be able to make it there again, but is he going to be able to win it?
Yeah, I mean, and listen to the teams that have won the Stanley Cup since 2020. 2020, the Lightning. 2021, the Lightning. 2022, the Avalanche. 2023, the Golden Knights, and 2024, the Panthers. What do four of those teams have in common? They are all non-northern teams.
Yeah, all in the South.
Yep.
The South will rise again, but in hockey. Yeah, so yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you definitely see a latitude with all those because Denver is not that far north when you're talking about it being a hockey town.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it's up in the mountains gets more people interested in hockey because it is a cold weather sport. Whereas, we're not talking about the most hockey hungry state there is in the country, and that's Minnesota. Where are they? What are they doing? Because it, like last year, Las Vegas was the most northern team in the Final Four of the hockey finals. So where are these northern teams that apparently know how to play hockey? Because they certainly are not in those cold weather cities that revolve around the sport.
Before we go on a College World Series, just a fun question to ask, and I want you guys, the fans, to also put this in the comments too. But what would you do with your one day with the cup? Because we've seen some crazy things. We've seen cups get thrown. We've seen them get dented. We've seen them get uh, in the ocean and all that. But what would you guys do? Ed, David, anything quick you could think of what you would do?
I want to hear Ed's answer first.
If I had just the ability to do it, I would go out to COTA out here, Circuit of the Americas racetrack, and get in a car and drive it around the racetrack for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Why not? I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking just unlimited, and that's the first thing that just comes to mind, but I think that would be a blast to do.
I think for me, I'd probably pour beer into it, preferably a stout, not a spirit like rum or whiskey, because if I chug rum or whiskey, I'd probably die. But pour beer into the cup and just chug it, and then smoke a Padron cigar. So just great celebratory cigar, and just yeah.
For me, it's the obvious choice. I'm having the world's biggest bowl of cereal in it, maybe some Fruit Loops. I don't know, whatever cereal I'm feeling that day, I'm filling it up to the brim, put some milk in there, and eating and enjoying that. But
If we're
you,
going to go food, I'm going banana pudding.
there you go. You can do whatever. Jello, maybe. I don't know if it'll set, but we'll try it. So yeah, there's some fun things, and I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are too in the comments of what you would do if you had the cup for one day. Do anything you want. So go ahead and drop that in the comments. But guys, we need to talk about the College World Series here. Tennessee Vols, they broke this curse. They were the number one overall seed, and they finally won it, guys. They finally won it. They are now 1-6 all time. They lost game one, and people I don't think realized how close this series was. Both these teams came in. Texas A&M hadn't lost a single game, so they were really dominant the entire time going up into it. But they won game one. Tennessee was down 0-1. This is best of three series, so you better put your foot on the gas, and that's what they did. Finished it with just 2 total losses in the postseason, and well deserved. Well deserved for the Tennessee Vols team. Beating down 0-1 is very daunting in a best of three series. It is hard to kind of get back on the horse. You don't have a whole lot of time to do that, but they did. They won the next 2 games against a team that hadn't lost any. So hats off to Tennessee, the Vols, for pulling this off, and your guys' quick thoughts on it as well.
Yes, kudos to Tennessee. They were the best team from start to finish. They were top three offense, top three pitching team. Just really a very very complete team effort. And yes, they have broken the number one curse, and they definitely deserve kudos for that.
Yes.
But oh, look at the Florida fan about to hate. Okay, listen up. All right, y'all did technically break the curse, yes, and nobody can take that away from you. But that being said, I think this says more about Texas A&M than it does about Tennessee, because Texas A&M was playing with a distraction in their minds, because apparently Jim Schlossnagle had accepted the Texas job a few weeks prior, and the players seemingly knew about it, or they heard rumors about it. Like, if you're going to tell me that they were, yeah, I see you right there, Ed, smiling. Okay, I'm not going to talk crap about Schloss, not yet at least. We'll see if we get there. But if you're telling me that the Texas A&M players were not distracted and that did not contribute to them losing the series, then like you're just I don't know what to tell you. Again, kudos to Tennessee, but I think they were very lucky to face a Texas A&M team that was facing the circumstances that they were facing.
Ed.
Yeah, look at Ed being a little Cheshire cat here.
He's like the kid at the playground in school with like sticking their tongue out.
uh, as far as this series goes, it was really very close, and it was just a matter of who got the last laugh. Because when you see a player like Dylan Dreiling, he had a home run in the 7th inning of all 3 games. You knew he was on a roll and he was stepping up. The rest of the team followed that lead, and we did see how, especially in college baseball, power can overcome the moxie, uh, the ability to gain those extra runs, to do those small things. Tennessee basically overpowered Texas A. I mean, Tennessee basically overpowered Texas A&M to get to this point, and to have the last run made for the series be one that's super acrobatic and high IQ. What and that slide by Hunter Ensley, that just was just icing on the cake. They're able to play power, but able to do it smartly, and that really propelled them to that championship.
Yeah, and it was almost like what was crazy and funny about it was almost the epic collapse they had in the end. Their pitching. It's like really their pitching that helped get them there. I mean, it was a complete effort that got them there, but that right at the end of the game, I'm sure they were sweating a little bit because those balls were flying off their palms of their hands, especially on that wild pitch. I'm like, what is going on here, Tennessee? But they were finally able to get that final out. And yes, on Schlossnagel, we won't get too much into this because our very own Ed has actually done a really great article on this. Check it out on AmericanDailyPress.com, where you'll get Ed's input. So we won't talk really much about that, but it does create kind of that distraction on your team in your mind when you hear some rumblings about, especially Twitter. Twitter, you'll hear just about anything, and you don't know if it's true or not. You could ask your coach, and he'll tell you to your face, "No, it's not true." And then the next day, guess what? It is true. So it is a dog eat dog world out there. But check out that article that Ed wrote on AmericanDailyPress.com. But you guys got some good positive insight on Tony Vitello on what he's done.
In the time that he's been at Tennessee, he is really he has the highest winning percentage of any baseball coach that program has ever seen, and almost by 200 points. That is just how good of a program that he has built. He has 284 and 110. That is a 721 clip. I don't know any program in the country that's had a 721 clip over the time that he's been there. So he has just raised a monster at this place, and this championship that they won, I think, may just be the first of possibly multiple that are going to have to go through Knoxville.
And Ed, you know who I think Tennessee ultimately has to thank for their baseball dominance? Vanderbilt. And the reason why I say that is because you have to imagine that the athletic administration at Tennessee, they were all thinking to themselves, well, hold on. If Vanderbilt, of all teams, with the very few resources that they have, if Vanderbilt was able to win a couple of baseball championships, then there is absolutely no reason why we, Tennessee, with far more money, far more resources, there's no reason why we can't be just as good in baseball as them. I guarantee you that Vanderbilt's success in baseball is ultimately what propelled Tennessee to take baseball seriously. Kind of similar to how Auburn being good at basketball under Bruce Pearl, pushed Alabama to being good at basketball. Sometimes all it takes is a little competition.
Absolutely.
Well, I would say that don't get it twisted. Vanderbilt makes money on their athletic department.
Yeah.
The fact that they don't pour hundreds of millions of dollars into their stadium, which they are pouring into the stadium and constructing both end zones at this point, it's not the same level as what Tennessee does, but that's just football. Mm-hmm. Vanderbilt is actually very good in baseball. They're very good at golf. They're very good in a couple of other things. They're just allocating the resources not in the death trap of the SEC football conference the way that many of the other teams in that conference have. They're just, I'm not saying being smarter with their money. They are just targeting a little not as high profile sports as what the football program is.
Yeah, especially when you're playing the SEC too. Well, not even just SEC, all of college football. The boosters, And college football is where the money is always going to come in at. It's where it pours in at. But Vanderbilt, with what they're doing as well with their baseball program, is also incredible for the size compared to the other SEC schools, such as Tennessee being around them. So, but guys, is the College World Series finally becoming that staple on the sports calendar? I want to read over some of the numbers, the final numbers that came out on this with attendance and viewership. And although this did not have the same amount of viewership and attendance as last year, which we're going to get more to that, and I'll let David talk more about last year's final, but the attendance 371,820.
How dare you, Matthew?
No, it's a good thing though. All right, I promise you, David. It was down from last year's 392. So I mean, they just about 20,000 less in attendance total. Viewership 1.56 average per game, which was down from the 1.65, and then the final series being at 2.82 million average viewers versus the 2.86 last year. So just a little bit down from there, but last year with LSU and Florida, that was must see TV. And I'm not saying this wasn't with Tennessee and Texas A&M, but LSU and Florida was must see TV. And even this year, Florida with what they were doing, everyone was tuning in to watch Florida, whether you want to admit it or not. Whether it was CAGs you were watching or you wanted to watch Florida lose, okay, you were tuning in to watch that, and there's a reason for that because the SEC is built such a dominance in all sports, not just football. We talked about this with March Madness. We are now talking about this again with college baseball. The College Baseball World Series runs through the SEC. It really does. And it's incredible with how powerful the SEC is just getting more and more powerful because 11 teams in the whole field this year. Texas and Oklahoma are being added to the SEC next year. So that's probably another two teams, give or take, in that field. And the number's just going to get higher and higher. So yes, it was an SEC final again this year, but come on, it's Texas A&M, okay? They're little brother, all right? Let's be real, okay? But LSU and Florida last year, they're up there. You know, they're big brother. So, in my humble opinion, I don't want to. I'm sure David may be a little biased to that, but I just really feel like LSU and Florida. There was a reason why that number was higher, but the numbers were still great. And I don't want to discredit that. The numbers were still great. Tennessee finally went in there first. But yes, guys, College World Series, a staple in the sports calendar. Yes or no?
Absolutely, man. And bringing up the series last year, I mean that was great from a neutral fan perspective because you got to see a close game and then you got to see a blowout from either side. But I think this is actually a perfect thing to talk about because I first started watching college baseball in 2011, and I am telling you guys, college baseball was not nearly as big back then as it is today. I don't think people even knew what college baseball was back then. And Ed, you and I actually addressed this earlier, and I thought you
Mhm.
made a very good point. But to those who maybe who also may be curious but don't know, why and how and when do you think college baseball has gotten so popular over these past few years?
Well, let's go back in the Wayback Machine a little bit. I was watching college baseball at the old Rosenblatt Stadium in the early 80s because ESPN was looking for live sports events to get on their airwaves. Well, that was something that they could dive into because it was cheap to do at that time. And as it progressed, they kind of went away from it. And I say it, as ESPN progressed, they progressed more into more professional league sports and that were not college football. Uh, so they kind of left the college baseball scene on the back burner, which it was on. Yeah, it's okay. And that old stadium, old Rosenblatt Stadium, was just a stadium. It was a little run down. It was old. It had been there for a long time. It was Creighton's home field. And when ESPN decided that it was going to make the College World Series relevant, that's when the new Rosenblatt Stadium was built. That's the one that you see there now. It is a wonderful facility, and I can't wait to see it in person. But when that stadium got built, it was built for becoming a television product. And when it became a television product, it became more popular. And it's just a beast that feeds on itself when it comes to that. So you add in the you add in the new stadium, you add in all the events, you add in the Jello Shot Challenge and everything that is fan related to coming to Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, to celebrate baseball in the way that you want to see it played. Then television gets a hold of it and really highlights it as a television product. So therefore, more eyes are going to be on it, and the scheduling is built for the television product. Then it becomes more popular because more eyes have seen it, and you start to see these players and these programs that you hadn't really noticed before. But we all, as sports fans, catch on to that one person, that one team, that one event that captures our imagination, and it just runs wild from there. And I think I can speak for both of you guys in saying that that's part of what got us into sports, was that one moment that said, that was awesome, I want to know more about it. And then it just, cycled on itself. And that's what's happening with the College World Series now. It is a wonderful event that I'm glad ESPN, one of the few things I'm glad ESPN has done, that going forward, they continue to highlight it. And this is one of the things that they're starting to do with women's softball as well. So we're going to start to see that, tie into this. And it's, just a wonderful product to see college kids playing baseball for the love of playing baseball for their schools, which is the purest form that we love about sports, that some of the professionalism and the money about it and all that stuff that goes along with that level kind of takes away from that. We want to get back to that innocence of it being about the game and only the game.
Well said, Ed. And to add to your, one that one special moment that got us into sports, I mentioned that I first started watching college baseball in 2011, and literally the very first game that I watched was us in the College World Series when we beat your Longhorns, and we made it to the championship series against against South Carolina. Hey, listen. Yeah, y'all still have a winning record over us in the championship series, so you got that going for us. But we made it to the final series against South Carolina, and just me being a naive 16-year-old kid, I'm thinking, oh, there's no chance in hell. Like, South Carolina doesn't have a chance in hell. But of course, I at the time did not know that not only were they coming off a championship win prior, but they were just like mowing down everybody. And I know South Carolina is kind of irrelevant nowadays, but that was truly one of the more dominant college baseball runs that we've seen in recent memory. Too bad it just happened during an era where nobody really gave a crap.
Yeah, and Ed, you really couldn't have said it any better than what you did, because that was completely true with me when it came to college sports in general. We talked about this being our 100th episode, one of our very first episodes. Just like David said earlier in the intro, was we talked about how we became fans of our respective schools, and me being Oregon, and it was that play. It was the Statue of Liberty play against Michigan that did it for me. And but that wasn't just why I chose Oregon, it was why I chose college sports. And that's why it's also the passion. And that's why I think more people are watching this, is because of the level of competition, the passion that you see in the players that are there. You don't see that in the pros because they already got the paycheck. They already made it. they don't really show it as much anymore. Where now on the college level, whether it's March Madness, the College World Series on baseball or softball, uh, the college football, you are seeing them just leave it all out there. You are seeing the passion, and there's nothing that beats that, in my opinion, whatsoever. So that's why I think viewership is up there. And the thing with the softball is Oklahoma keeps winning, and people may not tune in as much, or maybe they will just to watch them lose, but people are still tuning in. They were still tuning in, and they should keep tuning in because it is very, very exciting to watch.
And if I could just piggyback a little bit on that, there's a reason why LSU and Florida had higher ratings and higher attendance, and it's because of the blue blood nature of those programs when it comes to college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You would see the same thing with Texas. You would see the same thing, uh, with Miami when they become relevant again. Those are those are programs that are synonymous with college baseball, and to in any sport when you have the most iconic emblems, programs, mascots, logos, whatever you want to call it, playing in that sport, you're going to get more eyeballs on it because it is the best of the best. I don't care if it's one great team and one team you've never heard of. That one great team is going to carry it. That's kind of like when the Yankees play the Royals. Guess what? It costs more to go to that Royals game because the Yankees are in town. That is what kind of drives that, and that's why you saw last year the LSU Florida series draw more. But I think we're going to start seeing a shift of Tennessee drawing more than some of the other programs that you see show up in Omaha.
I think
Maybe like a Oregon State or something like that.
I think you make an excellent point, Ed, and I think you're generally right, but I have to be fair here, and I hate to sound like a defeatist, but, as far as the percentage of LSU fans and Florida fans, it wasn't even close. LSU fans just totally dominated us as far as fans go, but LSU fans are also arguably the best traveling fans in the country, and they would pretty much just dominate any traveling fan in the country.
Yeah, and what I thought you were going to say, Ed, was the reason why the viewership was so high was, well, because Livy Dunn was in attendance, which is also but
Hey,
and
did you know that? Did you
but
know that Livy Dunn is the girlfriend of Paul Skeens? Not
yeah,
sure if you guys knew that.
yeah, I did. That's why she was there. It wasn't because it was her school; it's because her boo was there. I mean, but you do want to pull for your school, so but on to the next NBA really quick. If you did not see, the Lakers hired their next head coach, and that is JJ Redick after Hurley turned it down from UConn. It seemed like it was the writing was on the wall. It was going to be JJ Redick, and that's indeed what happened. And still kind of weird to me seeing JJ Redick there. It just seemed like he was just playing, and he really was. But he's young, but that doesn't matter anymore. Most head coaches are very young. Thanks, Sean McVay, and it's another LA coach right there. So that's just kind of how it is. But the distractions, the misconceptions of JJ Redick and some of the comments he's made, I don't give an F. Says he's there to maximize players' careers and win championships. Okay, cool. You should do that, but it just seems like starting off, it was a little odd. I don't know if you guys really caught that or what your guys' feelings were on it.
I think I loved the energy and enthusiasm of JJ Redick there, but he definitely should have chosen a different word. I think it would have been better if he said, I don't give a crap, I don't care about any of that BS, or heck, even just, I don't give a damn. It is so freaking obvious that this was all predetermined by JJ Redick. He knew what he was doing. He knew that this was going to get a lot of views, and it did. So yeah, I love the energy. I love the enthusiasm. But yeah, you definitely could have chosen a different word there, JJ.
Kenny Powers.
Well, when it comes to introducing yourself to the world as the head coach of maybe the most iconic franchise, well, second most iconic franchise in the NBA, you can't create a more respectful way of introducing yourself than by cursing at the people that have questioned you before you even introduce yourself as the head coach. That, I think, is an unprofessional way of introducing yourself. I I know that there's a better way to say it without having to say it that way. And this, I know this feels like he's more frustrated that he doesn't feel like he is in control of the Los Angeles Lakers, even as the head coach, because no matter what he does, no matter what he says, everybody knows that it is LeBron's team and it doesn't matter what he does. And I think he's trying to fight back against that, but he's doing it in a argumentative and combative nature. And I don't think that's the best way to get the people on your side to support what you're doing with the team if you are combating them over them not thinking that you're in control.
And hey, Ed, remember, LeBron had nothing to do with JJ Redick being the head coach. He had nothing to do with it
No,
whatsoever.
not at all.
There,
Just like
there,
they didn't have the final say in some other decisions that they've made recently.
there we will be talking about that. There was no collusion whatsoever. I want to reiterate that. Wink, wink. But other news that happened in the NBA: Kristaps Porzingis is getting surgery where it's going to sideline him for a bit. He will miss the start of next year. That's already said, and of course, he will be missing the Olympics for his home country, Lithuania. So that is kind of a tough blow. Porzingis, he resurrected his career. I feel like in Boston, he's looked a whole lot better, but it's just injuries that he's continuing having to deal with, and this did sideline him in the finals too. But hopefully, this corrects it because I like seeing players have resurrecting their careers, and Boston was the perfect place. That atmosphere there that they've really created, he really enjoys it, and he was a big part in this finals winning team with the Celtics. So that is news to kind of keep an eye on.
David, can I ask you a question about this situation itself? How much does this affect Al Horford's contribution into the Celtics next year?
um, that's a good question, and I understand why you ask it because apparently, I guess Al Horford said that he doesn't plan to retire yet. So yeah, I think this definitely will factor a lot into Al Horford playing more and certainly playing more starting minutes going into this upcoming season. I mean, I thought Al Horford should have retired, and if I were him, I would retire, but I'm not him. So yeah, um, that's my answer.
Yeah, dude, his old ass needs to retire. Come on, you just won a championship finally.
Go
Well, he's
out on
trying to
top.
be the third person to retire after winning back-to-back championships.
Yeah, I guess so. But uh, one of the other topics that is being talked about, and I've been hearing some rumblings too, is Klay Thompson, uh, also known as one half of the Splash Brothers. Him and Steph Curry, are they going to be finally be split up? The last time I heard this happening, he was just came off his ACL injury. He's going to the Lakers. He's from LA. Blah blah blah. He didn't go there. He re-signed with the Warriors. Uh, but I'm hearing that it's not looking pretty right now. Doesn't seem like he is going to be re-signing with the Warriors. But that's just what I'm hearing. Like I said, Twitter, you can hear anything. All right, for all Twitter can say he's retiring, so someone will believe it. But I don't really know what's going to happen up there. But that is a big talk. Clay and Steph have been known as two of the greatest shooters that we've seen, and for them to be split up is going to be weird.
Well, I think if you check the bookies, I mean, last time I checked, as of right now, the Orlando Magic are actually the favorites sign Klay Thompson. And as a Magic fan, I very much would enjoy that. I know there are some Magic fans, like a really good friend of mine. We were texting last night, and I don't think he would be a big fan of Klay coming here because his play has declined a little bit. And you talk about his injuries and all that, but Klay can still be very effective. And personally, the reason why I would love Klay on the Magic is because one, he is a shooter, which we badly need in Orlando. And two, I believe that he would be very comfortable being a number two. I mean, he's pretty much been a number two his whole career behind Steph Curry. And obviously, with Orlando, Paolo Banchero being our number one guy, and I think we would be idiots to try to change that. And yeah, I think Klay Thompson would be very comfortable being a number two guy in Orlando.
Where do the Spurs sit on that list?
I don't
Because
know. Or I don't remember.
at this point, the Spurs have their anchor of the organization right now. So now it's about filling in the spots around him. And what better way to show how to in all win and climb that mountain to the top of the NBA world than to get somebody that's been there multiple times and is somebody that can shoot from distance, so Wimby doesn't have to play on the perimeter and on the inside. Sure, he's tall and long enough to do it, but get somebody that complements what Wimby does. That could be something I would keep an eye out for, but I'm not in that position to make those decisions.
Well, last night I thought we were going to see a move being made, and that's the Hawks trading away Trey Young. It sounds like that's also inevitable too, and the Spurs were also a top candidate for that, with the same reason why you just said that, Ed, about kind of stretching out that perimeter by having someone who is a deep threat, just like Trey Young is. So that would be an organization to keep an eye on. But Klay Thompson, if he isn't on his A game shooting, which of course everybody's known for, Klay Thompson has a very stellar defensive game. He is a great defender. He adds size and length, especially at a two, and he doesn't get credit. I feel like a whole lot about that when it comes to his defense. It's more so if he's off from shooting, he's off, and that's the tough part about it. But when Klay Thompson's on, though, I saw him put up a performance against my Kings once that was legendary. All in one quarter, in the third quarter, what he did was amazing. But sometimes you're on, sometimes you're not. So, but speaking of the NBA draft, if you didn't, like I said, if you didn't know, it just happened. Believe it or not, it did. It's only 2 rounds, so that's what's tough. But there was a lot of moves to be made. But of course, the one move that everyone was talking about going into it wasn't even who was going to get drafted first. It was who's going to be drafted number 55. Yeah, that was to the Lakers, none other than LeBron James Jr. And speaking of writing on the wall, that was just probably the most inevitable thing ever. That if he was available, he was getting drafted to the Lakers. And gosh, have they been roasted for this pick? And it is sad because there are other players out there. I'm just going to do a quick little rant and I'll let you guys pick up after me. But you are potentially damaging your organization for a player who, to be honest, should have probably been a undrafted free agent signing, not even a draft pick. Let's just say that up front because that's the truth. But there were other players that could have been drafted, could have been great pickups for your organization that you skipped out on because it's your star player, your head coach, your GM's son, LeBron James. And I will say, not to play devil's advocate or sound contradicting, I think it is really cool. I think it is amazing because this is a first that it is happening. But did they waste a pick? Absolutely, they did. The Suns licked their chops because they knew darn well that the Lakers were going to draft Bronny James, and the Suns would get their guy. They drafted right behind him, but it is unfair, and you did potentially, damage your franchise just a little bit on not drafting a player who was more worthy of that pick. But to see a father-son duo, even if it's for 1 year, I will have to admit that is going to be really cool to see.
I'm in the camp where I take a look at the percentage of second round draft picks that actually wind up sticking in the league. Because even though Bronny James has been drafted, he's still got to make the team. That's something that's lost in all of this, is the fact that he's got to make the roster. It's not guaranteed that he's going to make the roster over somebody that could possibly do better than him. Yet, yes, LeBron is probably going to have some say in that and all that good stuff. But when you're talking about end of the second round, I I think the stat I saw was less than 40% of second round players actually stick in the league more than 2 years. And that's not a lot. And even if Bronny James does stick in the league for the long haul, his career in the NBA is going to be so tarnished by the Lakers making this move that he will never be able to stand on his own 2 feet, in my opinion, going forward. So you could be 10 years down the line, and all anybody's ever going to say, unless you win a championship without dad, is, well, you got in the league because your dad brought you in the league. If he's just a role player, which, if anything, that's what he's projected to be, then he's not going to do anything that is going to get out from under the shadow of his father's legacy. And that's just unfair to him, and it's unfair to his life going forward.
Well, I think we're all in agreement here that we all knew who the Lakers were going to pick, when they had that pick. Something that we all thought was going to happen that did not happen. We thought that the Hawks were going to take Alex Sarr with the number 1 pick. And who they take? Zachary Richeche. And let me tell you guys, this is probably the first time in my entire life, or at least since 2013 when the Cavs picked Anthony Bennett, that in regards to the number 1 pick, I said, who the hell is this guy?
But one of the things, go ahead.
And I probably said that for at least half the picks, maybe more than that last night.
Well, there were 2 points that I made last night during the first round of the draft. One, how is anybody supposed to know who drafted who when every player gets traded as soon as they're drafted? Because I must have seen at least 6 players get traded away after being drafted by a team for picks that would probably be picking up somebody that's in 5th grade right now. Going all the way out to like 2032, I think.
The Suns did that. I'm like, 2031? Who even comes up with this crap?
Right. And the other part is the reason why you saw 2 France players get drafted 1 and 2 is because there's no tape on them. There's no over analyzation of their game out there for those 2 players, much like there is for Zach Edey. If Zach Edey did not play a single minute of college basketball until his senior year, and he spent all of his time in, say, Yugoslavia, and came back and his name was Zach Edovich, then he would have been number 1 in the draft. But because he had been on our televisions and he'd been overanalyzed by every outlet that has ever watched him and every scout that's here in the States, he becomes a project and not one of the more dominant players that you have seen come across. I think it's unfair to those players that want to play an extra year in college, a full college experience, freshman through senior year, to have them lose because we already know what their game looks like, and they all of a sudden become damaged because we've seen them play, whereas these foreign players, we haven't seen that. So then it's all based upon potential from these workouts that they did before the draft.
Yeah, and also real quick, I also want to say that after the Hawks made their pick, boy, let me tell you, the Hawks fans on my timeline were pissed the hell off. And listen, like 95, 96% of Hawks fans are Georgia fans, and they should be thanking the good Lord above every single day for their college football team, because Lord knows that their professional teams are hot garbage. The Falcons and the Hawks are irrelevant, and the Braves, other than their miracle 2021 run, have been postseason chokers. So they should be thanking God above for their college football team every single year, because their pro teams ain't doing it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Wimbenyama. Now, if you've played in France, you're going to get drafted probably number one. So his fault. But yeah, there was a lot of names on there people have never really heard of. It's just I saw that a lot there, and it's like you look at these college players that have done great, and they're slipping to the second round. It's like, all right, well, maybe scouts just don't see it. I don't know, but as a fan, I'm like, this guy worked his butt off. He did great in college. Why are they not drafting him? So,
Yeah.
you got to play in Europe.
Well, I feel like I've made this point on a previous episode, but I really do believe that the success we've been seeing from international stars like Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic has sort of caused GMs to consider guys from Europe, or just international in general, because there was a time when GMs just stayed far away from those kind of players. But because of the success that we've been seeing from international players, from European players, then GMs have been more open to drafting guys like that.
Well, in the 90s, that was a comedy.
Yeah.
It was a scout going to a foreign land to find this untapped talent to come to the NBA. It was a comedy. And here it is now. Every team in the NBA is doing this now, and it's just crazy to me that that's the case.
David, I was really shocked that you literally left off probably the best international player of our time straight from the land down under, Ben Simmons. I mean, I don't know how you missed that, but he did come from Australia.
Well, yes,
Before
Ben,
it
I mean, I know Ben Simmons is from Australia, right?
Yeah.
But he also went to
Yeah.
LSU, so that's why I didn't really
I know.
consider him.
I know. I just had to joke about it. It's just
What
because
what what is Ben Simmons even doing these
I
days?
think he's averaging one game a year played. I think that's what he's doing. So,
He's pumping gas in Oregon.
yeah. So, but
Not against the law.
But really quick before we round this off, I want to jump over to the NFL news on there just to cover is Brandon Ayuk. This has been such a roller coaster just because a couple weeks ago you saw the phone call with him and Jaden Daniels, him saying the Niners don't want me, blah blah blah, and then here he is having a productive meeting with the Niners. Uh, you could call it productive because maybe they floated out some numbers that he liked. I know he's probably trying to get into the same number area as Amon-Ra St. Brown, in the neighborhood of 120 million or so. But it's just such an interesting take just to hear him say that. And then now they had a positive meeting. Will this end up in a trade? Will this end up in a signing? I do not know, but if he leaves, are the 49ers become vulnerable, or what's going on there in San Francisco? Because why would you want to leave a place like that, besides the atmosphere, with their ways? They've been winning. I know they haven't won the Super Bowl yet in the last couple of years, but they're making it. This is a team that is talented and stacked. Why would you want to leave?
Let me answer your question, Matthew. Do the 49ers become vulnerable if Ayuk leaves? Short answer, no. Long answer, no, because the 49ers are one of the very few teams, if not the only team, who can suffer a loss as big as this, because they are just such a well-rounded organization.
I will jump in and say that the 49ers can become vulnerable because they were vulnerable in two playoff games last year, and Brandon Ayuk was part of the reason why they were able to escape those games.
Mhm.
And we're talking against the Lions and against the Packers. Saying with the Packers, that's another year of a very young receiving core, a very young offensive unit, and they're only going to get better and come back even stronger to try and take that crown that the 49ers have. The Lions, they're right there. They're on that same plane as the 49ers. They just couldn't quite get over it in the end of that game. So I think the 49ers do become vulnerable just because they don't have all the pieces in place. Just one piece missing or a player being plugged in that is not at the same level as Ayuk could mean uh, that there is a weakness there that can be exploited, and I think it's possible that it can be.
Especially when you are dealing with the constant injuries of Debo Samuel and him possibly leaving eventually too. That does kind of create some vulnerability right there that they could be losing two of their top receivers or not having them because one of them's injured and one of them got traded. So yes, Christian McCaffrey is an amazing running back and receiver. Same with George Kittle, but they can only do so much. It's true. And when you lose a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who has such a great ceiling, especially because of his route running, he becomes a big presence out there. And then Debo Samuel, who was well known for being able to do so much as well. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to get technical, then yes, if the 49ers do lose Ayuk, then they do become more vulnerable. But I still stand by what I said that the 49ers are just such a well built organization. They're such a well oiled machine that even losing a guy like Ayuk might hurt them a little bit, but it won't hurt them a whole lot.
I think if they sign him at least through the first year, they'll be in good shape, and then they have to make the decision on whether to keep him or Debo Samuels because they're not going to be able to keep both of those players on that same level of financial backing and make the contract for Brock Purdy to finally be paid what he's worth and not what the league minimum is.
Yeah, David, you're only saying that because John Lynch is there, you Buccaneer homer. I'm just joking, but the Niners are a great franchise and organization. They have built it from the bottom up, and they pride themselves on a lot of. I just had to throw out the John Lynch comment. So
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I actually totally forgot about John Lynch being there in San Francisco, Santa Clara, but San Francisco.
How dare you? How dare you?
how dare you? It's 45 minutes away. Yeah, but Ed.
That is, that's definitely where I'm at um, with the 49ers situation. They have been riding this wave of extra cap space for not having to actually pay their quarterback. And here we are, the Bills coming due, and they see the writing on the wall for that. So it really becomes a question of who do you pay, who do you trust, who do you work with going forward? Because this year may be the last ride of that team as it stands now. So we are just waiting to see what happens after that contract drops for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, because you're going to have to get that collateral. You're going to have to start getting these draft picks on some players that you may have to let them go. You may have to trade them, to start building up and reducing those contracts because once Brock Purdy gets that big contract, it's going to be tough to keep the pieces, especially when you have a guy like Nick Bosa out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's about all we have today, folks. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button and share these videos. We look forward to hearing you in the comment section as well and in the live chat. Just hearing your opinions, hearing what you have to say. And of course, I asked you that question earlier about what would you do if you had the Stanley Cup for one day. I really want to know and I'm curious what you guys would do. So please, once again, put that in the comment or the live chat section. But appreciate you guys tuning in. We will see you soon, maybe a bit for me. As you know, I will be out just because I had my first child. So, but David and Ed, as they have been doing, will be holding down the fort. So I appreciate them, and I hope you guys do too. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.